All right, hello and welcome to the Sasuga podcast with Anne. I'm so excited to be able to speak directly with Anne. We've been chatting a little bit online and now here she is. So can you start with telling us a little bit, Anne, about who you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Anne Crescini and I live in the city of Munakata in Fukuoka Prefecture. I am originally from the United States, but I've been in Japan for about 20 years, and I am an associate professor of English. I teach English to Japanese university students at the University of Kita-Kyushu. And in addition to that, I do a lot of media work. I work as a television commentator. I write a newspaper column, and I give lectures, and just do a lot of different stuff. And I love life, and I'm having a great time.
Fantastic. And for those who are watching on YouTube, they'll be able to see a massive cup of green tea behind you. So could you just, because I'm sure people are curious about that, can you just tell us a little bit about that first?
I love traditional Japanese culture. I am taking kitsuke lessons to wear kimono. I know how to play the shamisen, and I'm also learning how to a friend runs a green tea shop, and during the holidays I wear a kimono and I go give out free tea samples in front of their shop. So I'm just crazy about the culture. I love old Japan, and I would love it if the culture would be more preserved in the younger generations.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. And I actually took shamisen lessons quite a few years ago too. Yeah.
My whole world is a tanko bushi. Do you know tanko bushi? It's a very in Fukuoka Prefecture, and it's actually, because I kind of look like a punk rocker, so my friends all think I like rock music, and I'm like, no, I love tanko. That's my favorite song.
Brilliant. So I often start off these Sasuga podcast episodes by asking our guests about your word of the year. So for you, Anne, what is your word of the year?
I think for me, it's probably perseverance, because this has been a very hard year for me, especially because of the coronavirus. Yeah. My career has taken off. I published a new book in January, and the book was selling well. I was doing about 4 or 5 lectures every month. I had regular TV appearances and radio, and I just was loving life, and everything that I've ever wanted to do had been, was coming true. And then all of a sudden, Corona came, and all my lectures were canceled, and the appearances were canceled, and my book, the bookstores were closed, so my book wasn't selling. And then in March, my father actually passed away, and I couldn't go back to the United States to the funeral. And it was just like one thing, I felt like the character of Job in the Bible, just like everything was just happening one after the other. And I just, for about 3 or 4, maybe about a week or 2, I just was very depressed, and I locked myself in my room and cried, and I didn't have any idea what my kids were eating or if they were eating. But then, I just realized, I went for a walk with my best friend, and she said, you've got to live. You got to live your, like your father's Japanese, お父さんの分まで生けなきゃいけないよって言われて。So that just really struck me, and I thought, I have to reinvent myself. I have to be able to do new things. So I started looking for online lectures. I started writing my blog every day. I started making YouTube videos more, and just persevere. And now things are coming back. My TV is coming back. I'm slowly getting lectures, and I just really learned the importance of perseverance through hard times. And you just can't give up. I mean, everybody in the world is having the same experience right now, and you can either give up or you can persevere and look for new things. And I decided more fun, more fulfilling to try the latter. And actually, I've learned things that I would never have learned if it weren't for Corona. So I can be thankful. Yeah.
So what are some of those things that you've learned as a result of this?
Well, probably like just from a practical perspective is I've picked up a lot of computer skills, because I think, as we all have, my university actually had this sudden, like, we have to go online immediately kind of thing. And we had a month to prepare, and I had a computer allergy as far as any online, using portals or bulletin boards or any of that stuff. And but you have to do it. And so for about a month, I just studied, how to do online classes. And as a result, I got these skills that I never thought I could do these things. And I just never had any confidence. But now my classes are going great. I mean, I still prefer in-person classes because I just love being with the students. But as far as the study side of it, they're learning, and I'm teaching. And I couldn't without the computer skills. So that's been probably the biggest thing, is just my computer skills. I've learned how to, use Zoom and different kind of platforms for online stuff. And it's almost like I've been forced to try new things, whereas I probably would not have done this if it weren't for Corona.
Yeah, and I think we can say that for a lot of people, a lot of the listeners and those watching can identify this, that you're actually forced into these new situations, and then you learn, and then you see the benefits. Because I mean, think of it, Anne, like now you have this opportunity to probably reach even more people, because you're not limited to the where you are physically, and you can do so much more online. And I'm just so sure so many people are going to be hugely inspired by you, like that you are an American woman in Japan who's been here for like 20 years, and you are so fascinated with Japanese culture, and your Japanese is outstanding. And I'm going to encourage our listeners to listen to your TED Talk, because I just loved listening to your Japanese on there as well.
I was telling you earlier, I haven't done an English interview in over a year, and I mean everything was in Japanese, and so I was a little bit nervous. I'm like, gosh, am I going to be able to think of the words that I want to say? Because after you live here a long time, there's Japanese words that are not really translatable. Yeah. And you find in an English conversation, you find yourself stuck. Like you're like, yes. Like for example, shusoku, like you want the corona to shusoku, and I'm like, say that in English. It's really hard to say it in English. Or jishuku, jishuku is really hard to translate into English, and these kinds of words. So actually, I feel more comfortable speaking Japanese now than I do speaking English. My English is probably better, but I feel like more like my personality, my character comes out. My friends actually tell me I'm way more funny in Japanese than I am in English. So and it's just really weird. Like the one time I lecture request for English, and I panicked. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've not done a lecture in English like ever. And then I negotiated with them, and I said, can I please do it in Japanese? And they're like, oh yeah, sure, why not?
That is hilarious. So listeners and viewers, please take note, because one of the things that I hear most from my Japanese clients and online community is this kind of this fear of talking in English. And as you can tell from what Anne's just said, it's actually just about practice. It's about what you speak most. So even though you're a native speaker of English, because you speak Japanese pretty much all the time, that's what you become comfortable in. And in fact, I know some Japanese women in, like, for example, living in the States, and now they feel a little bit hesitant about speaking in Japanese, which is their native language, because they feel that maybe they're not quite good enough. So it's really about what you're speaking most. So speak more of the language that you want to.
Right. And I think most people realize too that your personality is different when you're speaking English and speaking Japanese. I think realize that as well, but for me, it's just, I mean, I believe humans can do anything if they just work at it hard enough. Yes. And so like I get kind of annoyed when people say, oh, you've got this language talent. I'm like, no, I don't. I stuck my tail off to get to be speaking this well. Yeah. But it's just it's all about effort, and if you want something bad enough, all you have to work at it, and you can do anything. And that's something I really believe right now, because I've gone through a lot of hard stuff in life, and just worked really hard to overcome it. And now my life is so fun. I just can't even believe I get paid to do what I do,
That is wonderful. And before we started the recording as well, you touched on one of my favorite words, curiosity. So could you tell us a little bit about how that has helped you?
Yeah, I guess I've never had confidence, and I've never had a curiosity really in my life. I just was, I'm good at a few things, and I would just stick to those things and not really try anything new. But a few years ago, I met my best friend, and she's very different from me, very just opposite. And she just really challenged me. She was like, you could do so much more if you just tried different things. And she's like, you should write your blog in Japanese and not just English. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. I can't write in Japanese. So just write it in Hakata Ben, because then it'll be funny, So I started writing my blog in Hakata Ben in English, like bilingual. And it was just so popular and everyone liked it. And I'm like, well, if I can do this, then I can do other things too. And when I was a child, I had a really severe stutter. And so I said, the worst, that I'm never going to get a job where I'm ever speaking in front of people ever, and I would avoid that. But now that's all I do is speak in front of people. And I've avoided that. And, but probably the concept that's life more than anything is curiosity, is having, Japanese kokishin. Because I just, after I realized I could write my blog in Japanese, I'm like, gosh, there must be other hidden talents that I have that are just lying dormant because I've tried,
Right.
And so I kind of had this new policy where if I got asked to do something, a work, a job, I was like, I'm going to do it. I don't have any idea if I can or not, but I'm going to at least. And so I got, I did narration, I did translation. I got asked to do a food report, a shokuri po, and I was, in Japanese, shokuji reporto, and I'm terrible at it. Like, I don't know how to describe, like, もうあれも外はなんかカリカリで中はふわふわ、体中に渡るみたいな感じ。I was like, I don't know how to say it, right? But I did like I ate shabu shabu with saibashi by mistake, those kinds of things. But I learned, and through that curiosity and through that spirit, that spirit of trying new things, I learned. And my whole life, I've gotten better. And these last 3 or 4 years, that curiosity has led to a spirit of trying new things, which has led to growth. And I think those 3 things are linked together, right? Curiosity, having a spirit to try new things, and the ultimate thing is growth. And without curiosity, people can't grow, I don't think. Yeah. And I think we're all after growth. And, growth doesn't just happen. You have to be proactive about it. And you have to step out of your comfort zone, and you have to try new things that you're not comfortable with. Yeah. And so I've made a fool of myself on TV. I've made a fool of myself in lectures, but as a result, I've learned from that and I've grown. So I think that curiosity, children, ask like 200 and something questions a day. I think I once read somewhere, and adults ask 5 or something. Yeah. And I think spirit of curiosity, just as you get older, it just dwindles away. And I think that's just really sad. And I think no matter what age you are, you should always be having that curiosity and asking why. The why in life is just so important. Yeah. And I think that just my salvation, it just has led to just tremendous growth for me in my personal life and in my business as well.
I love that. I often talk about the comfort zone, and when you talk about curiosity, it's like you're having that curiosity of, well, what is actually on the other side of the comfort zone? What is outside my comfort zone? What is the possibility there? I love that idea.
And I think, you have to be willing to fail, because, we're going to fail way more than we succeed in life. But even from failure, there's growth. And I think that, in Japanese culture, there's a fear of failure, a fear of looking bad. But I think, for me, the most I've ever grown in my life has been through failure, not through success. Totally. And I think that's something you kind of, if you can make peace with that, I think you can really just, I'm just going to do it. And if I fail, I fail, and I'm still going to grow. So whether I fail or succeed, I'm going to actually grow. So I think that's something that's very important.
So true. So Anne, if you would be willing, could you share with us an example of, you said you made a fool of yourself on TV, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers would be very interested to know like an example of that. Could you share that?
Well, I had an eating disorder for about 25 years of my life, and Japanese culture and food culture and the worldview that I talked about in my TED talk about the idea of dakimasu and the meaning behind that. Yeah. The love of my friends and family helped me to overcome that after 25 years. But as a result, I had very little consciousness towards food. Like, I didn't really think food was interesting or delicious, or it was just kind of something that it was my enemy that made me fat. And so I never really had a positive view of food. So I come to Japan, and Japanese people just love food, and there's every TV show is about food, and they're always food, and they have so much of a vocabulary to talk about food. And so I was doing TV stuff like commentary, but one time they asked me to do this like variety piece where you go around town to sample different foods and then give your impression. And I'm just like, I'm terrible at that. Like everything ends in like oishii, that's all, and it asked me to do it. I'm like, this is going to be bad because I can't describe, there's all the Japanese onomatopoeia words to describe saku saku and kari kari and puri puri and like we don't really have that variety of words in English as much. And so I'm like, this is going to be terrible, but you know what? I'm going to try anyway. And I went, did it. And it was just, I did so many silly things. It was just hilarious. Like the first thing I ate, negi torodon, and I'd never really eaten before, and I didn't really know how to eat it. And they like, oh, you should mix it. And I mixed it like a crazy American, like really like strong. And the guy on TV was like, oh, Rambo no American ya ne. I was just like, so I did that. And then I went to eat shabu shabu, and I was so excited that I ate it with the saibashi instead of the regular chopsticks. And it was just, and my actual reports were actually pretty lame too. I'm like, oh, this is great, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of it, I actually had felt like, you know what, me making these mistakes is great television. Like they are actually really happy with the cute American trying to explain Japanese food. And the other thing was, I just really felt like, you know what, I did something I was very uncomfortable with and had no confidence. And you know what, if I get asked to do it again, it's going to be way better because I learned skills, I've learned vocabulary. I'm going to go next time. I'm going to go on and I'm going to be able to make this really cool thing. And I've always wanted to say karara ju ni shi wataru. I've always wanted to say that phrase. and so you know what? It's just it was something and so that's my policy in life. No matter what I get asked to do, if I get asked to do a narration, TV, radio, I'll do anything. And if I can do it, I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to try to do it. And I think that's been huge for my career because most of the things that I've been asked to do, it actually turns out I can do it.
Right.
Right. And like I did simultaneous narration one time where I was listening to the Japanese and doing English narration, and they had to be the same length, which is really hard. But you know what? I did it. And so like for me, I can do anything because I'm going to at least try it. And so I think that would be my message to people is that, people like, I can't do that. Well, how do you know that?
Right.
How do you've never tried it.
Yeah.
It could be like me where you can do it. You just never even thought, oh, there's no way I can do it. So I'm not even going to try,
Right. So it's interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I'm done.
When you think about like saying yes to things, there's kind of a positive and a negative. So there's what you've just been talking about, saying yes and growing through that is a great thing. What I see a lot of, and what I have experienced myself in the past a lot of, is saying yes to please people in society, in the workplace, and in your experience, being you're a working mother, you've got kids, they're in Japanese school, right? So what are some of your thoughts in terms of how to draw your boundaries so that you're not saying yes to too many things?
I think it's a really hard call because in Japan there's all these obligations as a mother to do community and school type events, and one thing that has really been just a really traumatic experience with me was being on the PTA council, the Honbu. And I think, in Japanese society, even though PTA is supposed to be a volunteer organization, it's pretty much, especially here in the country in Kyushu, it's almost 100%. And you have to do it one time per child. And for the long time, I resisted that. And I thought, well, I want to be like, I want to immerse myself in the culture. So if Japanese mothers do it, then I want to do it too. And so, but I had no idea how time consuming and how unrealistic some of the expectations on me were going to be. And in hindsight, I'm way too busy to think I could do that kind of work. Maybe I could do a regular PTA job, but not be on the main council. But it was just the expectations on me, and just the bullying, and just the language that was used for me, the line comments that would come to me, just being really rude. And I just thought one day, I'm just like, why am I doing this? I'm like, I don't have to do this. And it's just, it's hurting my family. It's hurting my business. I can't focus on my work. My kids are full because I'm always grumpy about the PTA. So, I mean, I don't think that PTA and all PTAs are bad. I'm just speaking from my experience. But, and I just started thinking one day, and I'm like, why am I doing this? And I made the decision to quit. Everyone around me said, very interesting Japanese. They said, yamereta. And that phrase just really struck me. I'm like, why is it a weird thing to quit a voluntary organization? And I realized Japanese women would never even think to do that, because they have this gaman spirit where everybody, I might be miserable and I might not like it, and it might be a time drainer, but I had a gaman like everybody else, at least for a year, and then I'll just quit and forget about it. But for me, it had too much of a negative effect on my family and on my mental health. And so I'm really hoping that my example, that you don't have to be controlled by obligations to things like your time is limited in this world. Your time is limited. You need to prioritize your family and your business more than anything. And then, if there's other community events are good, there's good things the PTA does. It's just the expectations and the mental stress on me was just too great. And so I decided to get out of it. And I hope that my example is something that a lot of Japanese moms can in the future maybe one day follow, because there is really, no reason to be in a situation that is causing you mental misery and stress. Like a colleague actually had almost like a nervous breakdown and had to get a doctor's note that said she didn't have to do it anymore. And I'm just like,
wow,
what is that? Yeah. And so just that to set boundaries and look and say, look, I want to help, and I want to help the kids, and I want to be on this organization, but give all of my life to this. I'm not going to sacrifice my family or my mental health for this. And I think setting those boundaries in community groups and in school groups is very difficult for Japanese, because for me, I have no doubt that everyone was like, well, もうあなたアメリカ人だから日本の文化が分かってないやろみたいな。Right? I have a feeling there was that kind of view of me, and it's really too bad, because I didn't quit because I'm an American at all. I because I'm a mother who wants to prioritize and not be and have boundaries set up, right? So it was a traumatic experience for me, and it was a learning experience about culture and about interacting with human, and so even that traumatic experience, I see it as a positive thing, because I've grown from that as well. I've grown as a person. I've grown as someone who's learning the culture. I've grown as a parent, and I think that even bad experiences we can see as growth moments, if we see that. And I also took it as a time of personal reflection for me, because the Japanese word hanse, we don't really have it in English, but it was a really good experience for me to think about the importance of that as well, because there's things I could have done differently. There's things I wish I hadn't have done. And I think that the combination of the hanse and the curiosity, and challenging things, all of those lead to growth. And those are three factors, I think, which are all important to grow as a human.
I love that. And so I'm hoping that our listeners and those watching, you can take examples in your life. Like, is there somewhere where the gaman is a little bit too much, and just remember that you do have a choice, and it may not be easy, but then from there you learn, you grow, and you don't want to be sacrificing yourself or your family. And also, you're not able to even in your workplace, for example, you're not able to contribute at your best if you have got all of this stress and pressure going on.
And for me, probably the turning point for me is I was in a meeting one day, and I had this realization. I was like, you know what? I don't like myself right now. I don't like who I've become since I've PTA. I'm grouchy. I complain. I'm in a bad mood. This is not me.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, I want myself back. I want to be my cheery self again. And the only way that I could do that was to stop gamaning and just, quit, which is very unheard of in Japan, to actually quit in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
But I have regrets, and it was the best decision for my family, and it was the best decision for my work. And I felt great afterwards, and I just felt so free and able to get back. And I was back to my cheery self after a couple of days. So I think it's important to set those boundaries, but I also realize it's hard. It's a hard environment for Japanese women because the expectation on them as business women and as mothers is so unrealistic sometimes. And I think it's really hard for them to get away from that and to overcome that and actually, say no, I'm not going to do that. And because everyone's going to probably say, well, you're sticking out. You're not being Japanese or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
or you're being selfish or whatever. Yeah. So I think it's why it's really important to have to find other women who have a supportive mindset and who can, set an example for you, can follow their example, and they can also support you as you're going through those kind of difficult changes. And I love that. Stop the gamaning. Let's mix our Japanese and our English together. Stop the gamaning.
And as for all cultural things, there's times when something is good and there's times when it's bad. Example, in this corona stuff, the whole community spirit and caring so much about what other people think has actually stopped the spread of corona, right? Because you care what other people think and you stay inside even though you normally would go outside, right? So sometimes when that is not a good thing, and I think gaman is the same way. There's times when it's necessary to gaman, and that's also times when it's not necessary. And I think being able to differentiate those two occasions is crucial to success and mental health in life.
Yeah, I see it as there's the gaman where you actually cannot do anything about the situation. Like, for example, after a natural disaster or whatever, you just have to put up with what's going on. Then in the situation we've just been talking about, with the PTA or an unhappy work situation or whatever it is, there are the types of gaman where you can actually make a change. It may not be easy, but you can do it.
It's all about just you have to think about, am I actually going to be effective in my work or in my family with all of this stress? Because I was doing no good to anybody. I wasn't good. I was causing trouble to my family. I was not effective in my work, and I causing stress to the other PTA members as well, because so it's actually a good thing for me to get out, I think, for everyone involved. And I think it's very hard in Japan to put your own mental health or your own family above other people, because this is a culture that values putting others above yourselves. And so there is that spirit of selfishness, the wagamama, if you think about yourself first. But if you're not healthy, then you can't do anything for anybody, right? If I taureru, I don't know how to say that in English. If I taureru from stress,
let me help you with your English.
That's how you say it. I always wondered how to say that.
Collapse.
From stress, from PTA, I'm going to be useless to my family. I'm going to be useless to my work. I'm going to be useless to the PTA. So who actually benefits? Exactly. And so I don't think it's a bad thing to put yourself first at times. I think it's actually crucial, and it leads to more productivity.
Yeah. Well, Anne, this has been absolutely fabulous. I mean, I'm sure that what you've been talking about is so eye-opening for our listeners and for those watching. They're just they would not have had this opportunity to learn these kind of perspectives. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with our listeners and viewers today in this episode?
I just really want to challenge everyone to just try new things. You don't know if you can do it unless you try it. And my life has changed dramatically just because I'm trying new things, and I've had that spirit of curiosity. And for me, the possibilities are endless. I'm not going to give up. I don't know how to say kororo ni makenai. How would you say that in English?
I'm not going to give in to corona. Yeah. And
And I'm just gonna, like, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen, and things might look different, but I'm just gonna keep plugging away. And I believe that perseverance will eventually bear fruit. And I think that we just have to keep going, you know, no matter what happens, just keep going and keep trying and not give up. And who knows what'll happen, you know. I might succeed, but I'm at least gonna try with all my heart, you know. So
wonderful. Thank you so much. So for everybody who wants to know more about Anne, about your book and about your blog and about your TV appearances and everything on the TED Talk, everything that you're doing, all these wonderful things. And also if you want to book, I'm just going to like promote you here, by the way. If you wants to book Anne as a speaker or anything like that, just let me offer the opportunity. Right, because you can tell she's good in English, and she's even better in Japanese.
I am, actually.
All right, so we will link to all of that in the show notes for everybody. And thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate that you've taken the time today.
Thank you. I've had a great time as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you.